in what day and age do you get to wake up to an alarm that is on an electronic device that's basically a computer in your pocket? Like how often do you get to have the privileges and the opportunities that you guys get to have as middle schoolers? Like, in history, there's no other time that compares to how good it is right now. It's awesome, really. I wish that I had some of the resources that I had when I was in middle school. But let me tell you a little bit about what life was like for me when I was in middle school. If I was in middle school and I wanted to call my friend, or if I wanted to, just call pizza or call anywhere, I didn't have a phone. In fact, I couldn't even borrow my mom's phone. Actually, by the time I was in middle school, I could. But when I was in like elementary school, I couldn't borrow my mom's phone because we only had a landline, which is a home phone. Like, anybody still have a home phone? Some people still have it, but it looks much different now. This is what it looked like when I was in middle school. This was the kind of phone that I had to use to make any kind of calls to anybody or get any calls. So not only was there only one of them, but it was attached to the wall in our kitchen. So like, I could sit at the kitchen table and still be attached to the wall, but I couldn't like go, hang out in the living room, sit on the couch, kick my feet back. I couldn't like go to my room with my phone. That was it. And there wasn't any like caller ID. Like, you didn't see who was calling, so you answered every call. Like, nowadays, you don't know the number, you don't answer, right? And so we would always answer. I remember actually when we got caller ID, my mom said, don't tell people we have caller ID. We don't want people to know that we know that they're calling, or that they're not calling. Because, what do? You screen calls. You don't answer certain people. So my mom was like, don't tell people that we have caller ID. Because that was a big deal back at the time, I guess. So that's one thing that I had when I was back in middle school. I had to pick one up, and I had to actually, like call people that way. There's no texting, there's nothing. And then, if I ever wanted to go and watch a movie or watch a TV show, I couldn't just stream it on Netflix or something like that. Anybody ever heard of Blockbuster? I had to go to a place like Blockbuster, and they're all closed now, but there was one on 5 minutes from my house growing up, and we would go there and hope that somebody else hadn't already rented it if I wanted whatever movie I wanted. So I would go and hope that it was there, and if it was there, it wasn't even a DVD, it looked like this. It was a VHS tape. Okay? Now, anybody seen these before? Do you still have them in your homes? They're awesome. You could record over them. If you bought a $20 movie and you accidentally recorded the game over it, that movie's gone. You got to go buy another $20 movie. It was cool, but even music, I couldn't stream music the way that there's no Spotify, there's no Apple Music, there's nothing. You know what there was? This was even before CDs. There were cassette tape players. This was 90s. I was born in 92, so for the first 8 years of my life, if I wanted to listen to my DC Talk or anything else, I had to listen to it on a cassette tape player, which in this picture, if you push one of the buttons, it opens up, and a cassette, if you've never seen one, is like a mini version of a VHS. And you stick it in the thing, and then you close it, and you could actually fast forward and rewind, or you could also record over it with the radio. You could wait till your favorite song comes on the radio, and then hit record, and you got that song. But you better have an empty tape or you're recording over music you already bought. So life is way better now for you than it was for me growing up. When I was in middle school, I upgraded to CDs and it was awesome. And then, college, I got a smartphone and now I can stream anything. And I remember when Spotify was brand new, it was you mean I can listen to any music I want anytime? And then I could get on my computer and I could listen. Sure, there's some ads once in a while, but it's no different than the radio station, except I get to choose the station. And I get to choose what comes up next. So it was breaking technology. It was awesome. And you guys grow up in this environment, in this world where you have all this readily at your fingertips. You don't know what it's like to wait for something to be available for you to rent or to buy in the store. Because now we just have everything at our fingertips. It's wild and it's awesome. So let me, in fact, technology has increased so much that we have like all these apps that can help us like do daily life much better. How many of you do you still have to buy calculators for math class? Do you have to buy like you can't just pull out your phone and use your phone for Yeah, that makes sense because school. But like, I don't have to buy a calculator anymore. I have to do simple math all the time, and I don't even use my brain anymore. I just pull out my calculator because it's a click away. And why try and do it in my head when I can know it's going to be accurate on my phone because I got a calculator? There's apps for everything, for daily life to help with banking, with which you guys don't have to worry about that yet, but it makes life easier. And there's tons of stuff that makes life easier because of the apps that we can use. So actually, we're going to do a little activity here. I'm going to ask you something, and if you think it's real, I'm going to give you names of apps, and you have to tell me if you think it's real or fake. So we're going to do a live poll real quick. If you think it's a real app, I want you to raise your hand like this. If you think it's a fake app, I want you to close your fist. Make sense? Real, fake. Real, fake. What's real? What's fake? Okay, just making sure you're awake. And that rhymed. That's what's at stake. Okay, so here's one. Ready? The proposal app. You can ask someone to marry you through this app. Real or fake? It's about half and half. Half of you think it's real. A little more of you think it's real than think it's fake. It's real. It's a real app. So there, you can propose to people through the proposal app. Okay. Toaster operator. You can operate your home toaster using the settings on this app. Real or fake?
I would use that.
You're like, if it's not real, it should be.
Connected to smart.
It is real. It's real. Okay, here's one. Is it dark outside? This app tells you if it's light or dark so that you don't actually have to look outside yourself. It's called the weather app. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, a lot of you think it's fake. Some of you think it's real. I'd say the majority is saying fake right now. It's actually a real app. Isn't that nuts? Just yeah. Okay. How about this one? Download app. This app downloads the apps you just downloaded. Real or fake? It's called Download App.
Isn't it called the App Store?
Isn't it called the App Store? That one's fake. Yeah. It's fake. There's no such thing as Download App. There's no app that downloads the apps you just downloaded. Like as an extra copy or something? No. Okay. Here's one. Where did I put my sandwich? This app helps you locate your misplaced lunch. A lot of you are saying fake. Some of you think it's real. It's actually it's a real app. It goes with the lunchbox though. That has a. No, I'm just kidding. It's fake. It's a fake app. There's no such thing. Someone should create that though. Okay. Yo. This app allows you to communicate with your friends using only the word yo. Real or fake? Have any of you heard of this? It's actually real. It's a real app. You communicate only using yo. That's kind of legit. Yo. Walk by people at church downstairs, just be like, yo. They're going to be like, I speak teenager now because I use yo. It's been around for a while. Okay. You're looking it up now. Say it wrong. This app teaches you how to pronounce words incorrectly. Anybody seen that Vine? Pronouncing words incorrectly. He pronounces words incorrectly. Anyway, real or fake? A lot of you are saying real. It's fake. Suckers. So here's the thing. We have technology. It's awesome. We live in a better world now than we ever have. We've got so many opportunities, so many options, so many things at our disposal, at our fingertips that we can just, get on and find out anything we want to find out. We can get an app that teaches us how to say yo to each other in different tones, or I don't know even how that works. Somebody should find that and tell me afterwards. But But technology is awesome. But here's the question that we ask. And many of us have wondered this at some time or another. Some of us are adults in the room still wonder this. And it is this. Have you ever wondered, is media good or bad? You know, a lot of times you hear people like, you know, parents or student pastors or coaches or teachers that say things like, you know, back in my day, you know, we had to walk to school uphill in the snow both ways, right? And they talk about how awful life was when they were your age, and you feel like technology is ruining your minds, it's melting your brain cells. You're watching SpongeBob all day on repeat, and you're not learning it. No, I'm just kidding. Although you are melting your brain cells by watching SpongeBob. So I'm just kidding. My wife loves SpongeBob, and I make fun of her for it because it always annoyed me. But but you get people that tell you all the time, like, technology is not good. And they say it because you don't know how to talk to each other in person. Like, and to be real, like, I've been in vans with some of you before when we've taken phones away, and you don't know how to talk to each other. It's different than it was when I was growing up. And so, like, sometimes you have a harder time communicating face to face because you're used to communicating like this most of the day. Or maybe you've heard that it's bad because you can access things that you shouldn't be seeing. And so you hear all the time, technology is not good for your age. Or there's all these studies that come out that link social media use with depression and anxiety because you see how good everybody else's highlight reel is and you think it's the real life. And you look at your own life and you feel bad about yourself. And so there's all these case studies on middle schoolers about how media is bad for you. How you can sit and you can literally binge watch all day and not get anything done. You can play Fortnite all night long and you get mad when your parents put limitations on that, right? And so you hear all the time, you know, media can be bad. It's bad. It's bad. You shouldn't have access to it. But then there's another side that says media is so good. You can listen to great music. You can listen to great sermons. Anytime you want to learn about a passage in Scripture, you can look up somebody who does a really good job teaching the sermon, and you can listen to it anytime you want. There's podcasts. There's podcasts about how to live a Christian life. There's podcasts about everything. There's ways that you can, like we mentioned before, apps that just make your life easier, that help you do day-to-day things, that means it can save you time so you don't have to do things on your own. You can set up your toast and walk away. You don't have to sit there and babysit it to make sure it doesn't burn because you got an app for that, right? So technology is really good. Media is really, really good. So have you ever wondered with those mixed messages, is it good or is it bad? Because you hear a little bit of both. And let me tell you that there's got to be, I remember my English teacher growing up, she was just full of wisdom. And she I remember all the time she would say in class, we would read literature, we would go through our homework assignments, and she would pull out the moral of the story, and almost every time there was a piece in that story that she said, balance is key. Balance is key. Balance is key. Because too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And you guys know this from experience because maybe you've eaten the whole roll of cookie dough and you've felt very bad afterwards. And so you know too much of a good thing can be bad. You know that sometimes too much media intake can be really bad for your psyche. It can be really bad for your mental health. It can be really bad for just your development and your social skills. Because social media is not like social life in real life. And so, you know, balance is key. And when it comes to media, it feels like both sides are like a good versus bad. But what if there's a different way to look at it than good or bad? What if there's a balanced way to look at it? And today we're going to read from 1 Corinthians. Paul is writing, and he's written, we talked through his letters a lot in here. He wrote most of the New Testament. He's writing to the church in Corinth. And here's what he says, and they didn't have media back then. So they didn't have like this specific like idea that they were wrestling with, but they did have the same thing that they were wrestling with in other areas that can apply to this in a very real way. Because what you'll find is there's nothing new under the sun today. Technology may have advanced, but the same concepts and same truths are still being lived out in our lives every day. And so when Paul is talking about this, he's talking about something different than media, but it can absolutely be applied to media. And he says to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians 6:12, he says, "You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you." In other words, like you say, like I have Fortnite. I can play it all day if I want. If my mom takes away my PS2, I can play it on my phone, right? You can, but it doesn't mean it's good for you. We get that. We get the idea. We understand this. Just because we can do something doesn't mean that it's always good for us. And so when the church of Corinth was wrestling with this, they were actually wrestling with like if you remember, the Israelites were God's chosen people throughout the Old Testament. God was trying to use them to tell his story. They failed, so he sent his son, Jesus, and to show what it's supposed to be like. And so the early Israelites, the Jews, they had these rules about things they could and could not eat. They had things that were ceremonially unclean. They had to wash their hands before certain things. They couldn't wear two types of fabric in their clothing. All this kinds of stuff. And so when Jesus comes, and he says that's not the point anymore. That served a purpose earlier in your story to understand who I am, that I'm holy, I'm set apart. You cannot love both God and money. You cannot love yourself and me fully. You have to align your desires with mine. And so he redefined what it meant to be a follower of God. And so what you had were these Jews that used to be Jews and now they're Christians. And they're saying, no, in order to be a Christian, you have to abstain from certain foods. You have to there's certain things that are unclean. You can't. And so they had all these things that they were trying to push on these new Christians that weren't Jewish before they became Christians. And Paul is saying, no, don't worry about that stuff. You can do all things. You may have the right to do all things, but it doesn't mean that it's beneficial. And he's talking to the people who are like, well, I can eat, bacon if I want. How many of you, if you had to not eat bacon anymore, it would be a sad life, right? And he's saying, you can do anything that you want. But if you're sitting in a Jewish home where they never ate bacon and they still feel weird in their conscience about eating bacon because they were told their whole life they couldn't, then maybe it wouldn't be wise to sit there and eat bacon in front of them. Right? And he's saying, you can do all things, but not everything's beneficial. There's a time and place. There's balance. And then he goes on in the next verse. He says, even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. And this is really important. This is where it absolutely applies to what we're talking about today. Because while all media may not be bad for you, anything that becomes your master, anything that you become a slave to, anything that you can't go a second or a minute or an hour without thinking about, you're probably a slave to it. If all you are thinking about is your next chance that you can get back online and play whatever, or the next opportunity between the bell that you can get out on Instagram and Snapchat, and if all you're thinking about is the next time, or if you don't even realize and all of a sudden you're on your phone looking for something and you get distracted and you don't know what you're looking for to begin with, so you start checking off all your notifications and then 10 minutes goes by and you're like, what was I doing? I don't know. So you put your phone away and you just realize, I didn't even need to pull my phone out to begin with. It's just habit for me to pull my phone out. And you find that if you become a slave to something, if you're trying to go to bed at night and you can't because you're staring at a screen till 11:30 or midnight, and then you're tired the next day, maybe it's got some mastery over your life. So Paul is saying, you can do anything you want, but that doesn't mean that it's beneficial. Obviously, it doesn't mean sin. You can't just do sin, right? He's saying, but there are things there's those gray areas. It's not sin, but is it beneficial for you? And that's what he's asking us to think through here. See, Paul explained that when we become a slave to something, when we let something rule our lives, that's when we know that it's a problem. So what does that look for us in our lives? And you guys are going to talk through that a little more in your small groups. But ultimately, what it requires is a filter. All media requires a filter. It's kind of like balance. Everything requires balance. Everything requires a filter. Now, where we get the term filter Like you know you have Snapchat filters or Instagram filters or filters you put over your pictures or whatever. There's filters, but filters come from the idea like, you know, when you're cooking and there's like the strainer, that's a filter. So like if you're trying to get all the liquid out of something but keep all the solid in there, like macaroni and cheese, you got to pour the noodles into the strainer so the water goes out but the mac and cheese is still there. How do you love mac and cheese? I'm an adult, I still love mac and cheese. So like the filter there is to filter out the water but keep what you want, which is the noodles. Okay, a filter there's also ones that get applied to TV. There's programs and apps like VidAngel that filters out stuff that you don't want in it, and you set the parameters. There's browser filters that you can put on your browsers when you get online, so it filters things out that you don't need to see. There are filters. And so when I say that balance is key and that all media requires a filter, it doesn't mean that you have to put a certain kind of LUT or kind of color grading over your screen or whatever. It means that literally you've got to set up a way that you filter out how you balance your media. How much is too much? That kind of stuff. And you can talk those ideas through, but wisdom is making the best decision possible when there isn't a clear right or wrong to choose. And wisdom is the filter that we need to use when it comes to media. Wisdom is that filter. When we show wisdom, it allows us to see what is beneficial. It's not just about what you have the right to do. And all the time people say, well, it's my right. It's my right. I can do this because it's my right. I can do what I want. Well, you may be right. You may have the right. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's beneficial. And what I want you guys to get out today is to remember that balance is key. Not everything is beneficial, even if you have the right to do it. All this requires filtering, and the filter of wisdom. So I want you just some questions to ask yourself is, where is media controlling me? If you can figure that out, then you're on your way to figuring out everything else. Wisdom says, okay, I can see where I'm in the wrong, and I can see where I need to make some better steps. So where is media controlling me? And then think through, where am I using media well? I mean, you can look up your Bible in like hundreds of different translations in a millisecond. Like, you've got a lot of resources. There's things that you can use that uses your media well. Maybe you do have some boundaries. Maybe your parents have locked down the App Store. Maybe you have to plug it in, out of your bedroom at night so that you're not tempted to just stay up all night on your phone. But maybe you have that balance. So where are you using media well? And what is wise? Is this wise? Anytime that you encounter something, think through, is it wise for me to be doing this? So as you guys get ready to go to your small groups, where do you need to use the filter of wisdom when it comes to how you use media? I want you to think about that. You'll discuss this with your groups, and then and I'll pray for you guys, and we'll be dismissed.